as one, walk with thousands.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Dad Bods and Beards. We've got a fun one today, but before we get into that and introduce our guest for today, we wanted to highlight our primary sponsor, as always, Mountain Ops. You guys have followed the Mountain Ops journey we've been on. We've become close friends with Trevor, who created Mountain Ops, and then through that connection, he got us paired with Brock, who's our coach, and Brock has been kicking our butts. So it's been a fun ride. We utilize, dude, we'll save this conversation when I told you about the other day. About enduro? No, about what enduro's been working for. So, but no, everything from you guys checking out the sleep gummies all the way to the non-caffeine stimulants, all the way up to the Yeti mode, which is a very high stimulant. I love that one before a run. Go check out mountainops.com. Use code DADBODS at checkout. You'll get 20% off. And then, as always, every purchase on mountainops.com goes to feeding families in need. So we want to just jump right into the meat of what we're going to talk about. So. Elysia Butler.
Yes.
And you are a suicide prevention specialist.
Yes.
And we talked a little bit kind of off camera about what that is. So for anybody who doesn't know,
camera.
Yeah. For anybody who doesn't know how you become that, and like give us the 5 minute quick couple minutes snapshot of who you are, what you are, and where you got to.
Okay. Yeah. So like we kind of talked about before, it started when my 7-year-old attempted suicide. Knew he was struggling, knew he was dealing with different things. But it wasn't until then that we went, all right, we've got to change some things that we're doing. Mm-hmm. To say today that boy's doing great. Mm-hmm. He's 20 years old. He's gone and played college football from coast to coast. And he has overcome a lot of those things and those self-doubts and beliefs that made him at such a young age want to not exist.
And it's a lot of work. It's not easy.
It's a daily thing. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing where I know what it's like to have a kid who doesn't want to be here. Mm-hmm. Then that was about 2012, 2013. Then we go to 2016 and my sister-in-law dies by an overdose. Mm-hmm. And that really puts you in yes, my son attempted. But he did not die with it. But then when you lose someone who is a sister to you, a second mom to your kids, it changes your entire life and your entire outlook on what comes next and the value you put on one person's life and one person's impact. And with losing Amy, it changed the direction I headed in my classroom. I was a teacher in Davis School District for nearly 14 years, 2008, 2022. I got involved in Hope Squads and suicide prevention in the schools, making sure that those kids knew they mattered above anything else, right? Like I didn't care about the academics. I didn't care about the behaviors. And it turns out when you care about their mental health first, they rise to those occasions.
That's interesting. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like, it makes total sense when you say it that way, right? But it's like to say, like, I don't care about your academics because so much in school is put on like performance for kids.
But if there's so much pressure to be a certain way, to be put into this box, it actually does the opposite, right? If you're feeling forced to do something, our biggest reaction is like, you can't make me do that. Mm-hmm. But when you become a team with a teen and they know you're on their team, they want you to be proud of them.
It's interesting because this is just expounding on the episode we had with Jessica from Stand for Kind, where she's saying that the kids talk to each other. Mm-hmm. And we talked a little bit before about suicide, not just prevention, but awareness amongst kids, because the suicide rate is growing significantly. And why, in your professional opinion, like why and what is the cause behind like parents shying away and like getting skittish around the word suicide? Like, because I feel like, or just even just talking about it, like, why is it that it is so like hush hush, or why is it so hard? Because I feel like when our experiences with it, and people we know, and even my own suicidal ideation, it's like as soon as you break that ice, you're kind of like, whoa, no. This is a megaphone conversation. This is not an avoidance conversation. So what is it with your experience with kids and parents and that being more your focus, how do you get parents to start talking to the kids, and why do parents shy away from it so much?
Well, I think one of the biggest reasons why parents shy away is that stigma, right? They think if they talk about it, it's going to perpetuate it. And the reality is that by asking the question, it actually opens the conversation up. You can ask the question by saying, you can ask it directly, okay? And this is when you are really worried about a child. Maybe their grades have slipped. They're not hanging out with their friends. They're exhausted all the time. They've had a breakup with a boyfriend or a girlfriend. They lost their job. I mean, it could be something as they failed a test. I mean, there's so many different variations to it, and each situation, could be different depending on what's happened prior to this. But asking, are you okay? Can you tell me what's happening? Can you tell me a little bit more about what happened? If you are very worried about them, you need to ask them, are you thinking about taking your life?
What if they don't want to talk?
Then,
because I've experienced that where because they are so low in despair and they do want to take their life. They do want to just not be there. Where this to that point, like it's happened. Like you have to sleep in their room. You have to take things away. You have to like you have to do all that, but they won't talk to you. What do you do?
You let them know that you are there to listen when they are ready to open up. And we've talked about this a little behind the scenes, right? That one of the biggest things that parents want to do is they want to come in and rescue, and they want to save them, and they want to solve all the problems. Well, the reality is that by us swooping in so much and overprotecting our kids and taking away their problems, we're actually taking away from their resilience and their ability to believe in themselves that they can overcome whatever is happening.
So do you think it almost maybe like perpetuates a need to be saved then if you do it that way? Like to where they can't get through it on their own?
This all ties back to, the work that I'm doing and Hero's Journey. Joseph Campbell created the hero's journey, or found the pattern that happens with every movie, every book that you've read or listened to, or a movie that you've watched. There is a pattern that main character has to go through. There's something that calls them on.
We're going through that right now.
Right. There is. There is. And the thing is every single one of us is in the movie of our own life. And I can't remember. I was listening to another podcast or a book. I can't remember. I'm always like filling my mind with different things. But what they said on it was that I want you to pretend you are that character in the movie. What is the audience screaming at you to do? You're watching it as an outsider. So zoom out. Like, that's what I'm teaching kids to do. You really are the hero in your own life. Or you can choose to be that villain who keeps yourself stuck
so
in the
cycle. So say they're
cycle.
listening to that, right? And they take your counsel and everything, but how do they learn to cope? How do they learn to continue living with that stress? Because mind you, like, I have stress in my life. I have like so much stress where it's gotten me sick before, like just recently. And so how, like I've learned and all this, but how do you teach your kids and how do you teach yourself that stress is good? Depression is okay. Being sad and being lonely is okay. It's like, but how do you make it so that, hey, you don't need medication always because you feel sad? So how do you help them? How do you cope how do you help teach your kids that it's okay? Because like you said, you can't save them for certain things.
There's a couple different ways we can go with this. First, you've got to be doing the things. Our kids are watching us and how we react, or if we're responding when we are stressed out. When you're stressed out, do you go and to the pantry and eat a bunch of stuff, or do you go on a walk? Right?
I just cry. I'm joking.
In the pantry.
But that's, and sometimes that is what you need in those moments. But if that is your every time something stressful happens, that you're looking for an escape, you're looking to avoid rather than resolve it. Yeah. That's that's not a coping strategy. That's trying to run away from a problem. And so they're going to mimic what you are doing. They truly are. And they're more aware of what we are doing and coping with our stress and situations that are happening than we think. Like, lots of times we think we're hiding things from the kids, and they see things that they recognize in us, but you've got to be able to have that conversation.
And it kind of sucks because I have noticed with one particular child who struggles a lot that we've talked about, and we talked about before while we were filming. When I get stressed, I dive deep into work. And I just dive and I work and work and work because I think if I just do this, I'm not going to be stressed because this will create this and this, which is false. And I'm learning how to manage that and get a lot better with it. But she does that, and it makes me feel bad because I'm like, crap. Because it does. But they really do follow you.
I think you unlocked something in my brain when you said that. Like, I'd never even grasped this concept before. And this isn't a slam, but I've always been the chubby kid. I've always been overweight. And then when I got into my severe bouts with bipolar and my depressive episodes, I ate my feelings. And I became food addicted, like to a very unhealthy level of the amount of, fast food and stuff I was eating to cope with making me feel better, that little dopamine hit that it gave me. But I'm realizing, and this is no slam to my dad, my dad was always heavy my entire life too. And my brother had the metabolism that everybody dreamt of. Guy could eat whatever he wanted. My older brother by only 3 years, whatever. I was the little brother that got the terrible metabolism. Mm-hmm. And my dad was and still is one of my heroes. And I think, I'm not going to get too deep into it, my dad has some pretty traumatic upbringing. And as an adult now, I realize that, like, as an adult and a father, I'm like, whoa, I'm starting to see my dad more. When I'm looking back, I'm like, my dad in his 30s, my dad in his 40s, I'm starting to realize that. And you said that of your kids are watching and they're like learning your coping mechanisms. And I realized that, like, my dad coped with food. Mm-hmm. And I picked up that same thing. Like, that was one thing that my dad and I would do together is, like, we would go, like, he would get me treats as, like, little rewards. And, like, we would do things like that together. And I don't think there was any negativity behind it, but it was like, I started my relationship with food in a very unhealthy way. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I really subconsciously was picking up, are you sure you're not a therapist? Because, like, I'm over here processing all of this. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And this is not a slam to my dad, but it's just like, it's just the ripple effect. Yeah. Since my dad has taken great care of his health and he's got his diabetes in check and stuff like that. And I've been doing a lot better with mine, but realizing now of, like, I've got this chance to, and I reward my kids with treats. And I'm like, oh my gosh, could I potentially be starting something here? And so that's just, there's my outward thought. I do up close magic when I'm. You do up close magic, yeah.
There is a cycle and patterns repeat until someone chooses to change the negative patterns to a positive pattern.
And they're not always malicious, right? Like, sometimes
like you just said, like, you didn't know that you were doing that.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's like that's the culmination I'm realizing here is that, like, sometimes patterns are not intended to be bad. It's just the way that a parent is coping. You don't realize these little eyes are just watching.
And we do the best with what we know at the time. And we've got to be able to forgive our parents for things they did when we were a child, when they were just doing their best to get through whatever it is that we did not comprehend as kids, right? And then, so now us having this conversation and you realizing they are watching. So what they learn from me, they're going to go into adulthood as to, this is how we adult, right? And going back to, your question, I am not a licensed therapist. My degree is in psychology. My mom was a counselor. I was an educator, taught English. I have a master's in educational leadership. I've done a lot of trainings. I'm certified in suicide prevention, emotional intelligence. So a lot of this stuff, like, I can't say I'm licensed, but there are so many things that you can learn about life and about patterns and repeating it or changing it. Ed Milet says, be the one to change. Like, it only takes one. And you've already done that. Like, you getting healthy, losing this weight, shifting, starting this podcast. They see you and these kids look up to us. And one of the things I want to mention though is as parents, we do not have to have it all figured out. And it is okay and necessary for your kids to see you fail. And then to talk about what happened.
Well, I've mentioned this a million times, and Logan has implemented. We do high, lows, and gratitudes. And so every time at dinner, we say one thing that was high for the day, one thing that was low, and one thing that we're grateful for. And it really has opened our kids' eyes where they talk and we communicate. It actually takes, where dinner used to take maybe 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, and then they're gone. We're there for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. Like it's like I'm to the point where I'm like, okay, I gotta go, guys. And they're like, no, but it's fun.
Isn't that great? Like you're building the connection. Like we heal through connection with real connection. We're face to face. This would be totally different over Zoom, right?
Oh, 100%.
It would be totally different. We want to be around other people. And so many times people think our kids don't want to hang out with us. They actually do. They want you to invite them to do something fun, to do something together. Because lots of times people think, oh my gosh, we've got to do, the family dinner and we got to do this and it's got to look a certain way. It doesn't have to look a certain way. You figure out what works for you and your family, and connecting together is where they're going to open up.
On this note, I want to share one little quick story, and then I have a question for you. So this health journey that we're on, we talked about that we've got the marathon and the half marathon coming up. I've got a 9-year-old daughter that is insanely active with she picked up roller skating in like a couple of days, like old school roller skates, and those are hard. She does tumbling, she does soccer, and she gets feisty. Like she is a competitive little athlete, and she wanted to come with me on a run a couple months ago when I was still struggling. I had a 3-mile run, and kids have no filter. She's 9, and she cracked me up. She wanted to come with me again yesterday. I had an easy 3-mile run on my schedule for yesterday, and she goes, as we're putting her bike in the truck, she's like, are you gonna run the whole time, or are you gonna stop like last time? And I was like, oh. And then she's like, are you gonna be breathing like again? And so she was kind of calling me out a little bit, but it was just more her just like making like observations.
Yeah.
Like, so she's like setting the stage of like almost kind of like, what am I supposed to expect? We ran them. My conditioning has severely improved, and I did my best 3-mile time ever. Did it right at like 30 minutes for a guy who's still in his 230s, 240s. That's good for me. But the cool part is when we ended, my 9-year-old turns around. She was on her bike the whole time. And she like said super excitedly, she's like, you ran the whole time, Dad. Like she was like, gonna get me emotional. She was like excited for me to be like, she was like, wow, you ran that whole time fast this time, Dad. And it was like, in that moment, realizing like, whoa, she picked up on that. So it was like, she wanted to spend the time with me. And then we got all these fun videos. I'm going to make a little clip out of it. But it was realizing that like her seeing Dad go from never being active to trying really hard and, tripping up a couple of times, not making it all the way through, to getting this like praise from my 9-year-old telling me like, wow, Dad, you did it. That was like, okay, we're crossing that finish line.
Well, and okay, before you ask me the question, if you remember it after I chat,
I do,
we'll figure that out. But you bring up a few good points here. We need to let our kids see us start something new that we've never done before, because then that gives them permission to start something, to mess up, to maybe have to run a little bit, stop, walk the next part, start over again, right? Like they need to know that it's okay to not be perfect before you do something.
Yeah.
And you're showing that, and you're inviting her on this journey. And I can't remember if I said Ed Milet in this one or not. He's my favorite with podcasts because he brings on people from all walks of life, right? And one of the things he talks about that ways parents are failing their kids right now is to not chase their dreams.
Not chase their parent. The parents aren't chasing them?
The parents aren't chasing their dreams. The parents are doing the same thing every single day, not being happy, not eating healthy, trying to escape rather than find a solution. There's 2 types of stress. There's good stress and there's negative stress. The good stress is where you're worried about something that you can actually make a change for. The stress that puts damage on your body, well, I should go back, and that you actually do something about that stress to make the change.
Yeah.
The stress that people worry about so often is if they're watching the news all day. And all these things are outside of their control that they can do nothing about. And that is what is giving them anxiety, the depression,
What's
the
so
stress.
funny is what you're saying is exactly what me and Logan are doing. We're
Yeah.
growing and all this. And when I see people stressing over those things, I'm like, don't you have time to stress over the things that matter? Because we're stressed all the time about the business aspect of Copper Johns or Dad Bods and what we're, and it creates stress. And, but I do see my kids doing it. So how do I involve my kids in the business? I do all that kind of stuff, but I do worry about like there's sometimes that they're little, they're not doing enough, so to speak, like that maybe they're sitting on their butts too much or anything like that. How can you tell if our kids are okay?
You got to have conversations with them. And I'm in that with you as well, right? I mean, I have a 14-year-old daughter, a 17-year-old son who's going to be graduating, and then I've got a 20-year-old boy.
Let me hear you ask this question because of that. I have teenagers too. You don't. So this will help you later on.
Yes.
Coming down the pipe.
How do you figure out if it's just them because they're teenagers and they're crazy, or there's actually a problem?
I think you need to go on the safe side of wanting to make sure that they are okay.
And
right?
just know and get to know your kids better.
And get to know and have that relationship. Because if you can't have those conversations and communicate over the things that don't matter, why would your child come to you over the big things? Right? You've got to create that connection of communication. Lots of times in the car rides, doing that, having it. We talked about walk and talks, right? Noticing the changes in behaviors of your kids and saying, I'm here when you're ready. And my 17-year-old, like I saw in these last 2 weeks, like my husband and I both checking in. Are you okay, bud? Like, are we, we're noticing some different things. He's like, yeah, I'm good. And then last night, this was just last night, 11 o'clock, comes in after getting home. And he's like, I'm ready to talk. Here's what's going on. Here's what's been happening. I just went through a breakup, Mom. Like they on and off. And he's like, but I need to make some changes. And I said, okay, awesome. How do you want me to support you with this? And I tell my kids all the time, I cannot do it for you, but I will do it with you and alongside you. I'm your biggest fan. I'm your biggest supporter. And with kids doing all the sports and all of that, I always make sure to tell my kids, because my son is a great athlete, the best kicker out of high school, goes to play college football. I was a collegiate athlete myself. And I remember always thinking that what mattered was what I did and accomplished and all the accolades and all of that. And so what I've made sure to do, and it's not that my parents ever said that, it was just how I perceived things. They were so proud of me, right? But they never said it in the words, maybe they said it, but I didn't hear it then, okay? As my adult perspective in raising kids with great talents, I always let them know you are the magic.
Yeah.
It is not what you do.
Do you sing it though?
I do.
You got the magic.
Okay.
Oh, I don't sing. I can't really sing. I pretend to sing. I pretend to dance. But letting them know there is nothing that you can do to change your worth.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, and this goes back to the question I had, and then it ties into what Tyson was talking about. So without oversharing anybody's private information, what do you do when you have a child that is already admitting some of these darker thoughts and feelings and experiences into we're seeing it in young kids. I mean, you saw it in your son, and we have some people that mean a lot to us and very, very deeply to me that are experiencing this like right now as we speak, and been getting different, we get different messages and reach outs and texts and stuff like that. And like, what resources and like, what do you, if like there is no need for like the uncovering phase, like if you're in the meat of it, of like your like statements and things are being made, how do you respond as a parent? Like where do you go? What are the resources? Like, how do you tiptoe around that without, I'm so bewildered by that, and I don't have a response.
Yeah. Well, if you know your child is struggling, both you and your child need to get the professional help, whether that is therapy, whether that is coaching, whether that is doing something athletic together. Like, there is so much connection with mind and body and the healing, and that sometimes just getting out is going to shift where you're at mentally. Joe Dispenza, I don't know if you're
I love Joe
familiar
Dispenza.
with him, all of this stuff in shifting your mindset and setting yourself up for the next day begins with what you're doing right when you go to bed. Because most people repeat all the thoughts, the feelings, the actions of the day before. So to shift it, you got to be intentional. There are resources like 988. That is a crisis care, and they will direct you to different places. If it is emergent, it's a 911 or the ER. Okay.
Yeah.
If your child is actively going to injure themselves, you get the immediate help.
Yeah.
Okay. You take them there. Many of the times we're not in that. However, I will say about McKay-D, we've got a 1,000 youth, so they classify youth 7 to 24, going through their doors for suicide attempts, mental health concerns every single month. That's 33 kids a day. So if you're not...
That's just the ones you know about.
That's the ones I know about,
That's
and the
crazy.
statistics
Yeah.
at
That's
one
just McKay-D.
hospital. At one hospital. Okay? So I know that there's many times they don't even have enough beds at primaries. They don't have them up at Huntsman. Like, there's so many different, I should say there's so many things. Like, our kids are crying and asking us to step up as the parents. And a lot of times we think, oh my gosh, I've got to know all the answers. You don't. Your child needs to know that you're there. And many times I've said this to so many teens, there is nothing bad, sick, or wrong enough that you could do that means ending your life would be a solution. Yeah. Right? So finding that help and support together, it's got to happen together, because if the child, we talked about this earlier, if the child is going and getting the help, but you as the adult don't have the tools.
That's what I was about to ask you that question.
Right?
Because
You've
that
got
was
to
in the
do it
previous video.
alongside with them. I do different coaching. We have, with my nonprofit, we have ambassadors where they learn the statistics, the warning signs, how to question someone, how to persuade them, how to refer them. It's the QPR Institute method that we use. How to have the conversations. And then with what I've created with the Hero's Compass, followed by Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey that we talked about earlier. And you point out a good point.
And he told me what he wanted to do, and I'm like, okay, it
Yes.
costs money, but at the same time, I'm like, this is going to help him, and let's do it.
Well, because they've got to know you're on their team. They have to know that, and that you can't do it for them. You cannot rescue them.
Unfortunately, you can't.
You in the crisis situation, yes, you can get them the help and the support that they need. But the steps they take, they've got to put one foot in front of the other and figure out what works, what doesn't, and those things that they continue to do, and know that you're there to support them, right?
I'm glad this is the way the conversation is going, because I know there's a couple people that need to hear this conversation. And I think, no, not just you.
No,
I mean,
that
you're
was
one of
not a
them.
dig at you.
I'm just saying you are obviously one of them, but me as well. Like,
All of us,
like,
every single one of us, whether we've experienced it or not, can relate in some way, whether it's a friend, a family member, or an acquaintance.
Well, and I think one thing that happens too, and I think we'd mentioned this once before, but the sign to me, like an overwhelming sign of you're doing the right thing or you're going the right direction is seeking help outside yourself to help your kid. Like admitting, I don't have the answer here. I don't know where to go here. And like me personally, almost maybe on like a spiritual level, I'm like, you are opening yourself up to either call it God, the universe, whatever, of saying, I don't have enough knowledge here to help this perfect little human achieve, what they hope to achieve in their life. Like, where do I find that? And I think, going forward with that intention, like you're going to find the answer. You're going to find it a heck of a lot faster than shutting your kid up. And to me, that's that's, I think, the important message. And then I think what the flip side is then, as parents, we start getting down on ourselves for not having the answer. We start beating ourselves up because work takes us away, or all these other things that are, necessary evils. And I think you hit it on the head when you said you need to be there for your kids. That doesn't always necessarily mean like physically there, like emotionally there, spiritually there, like all of these different ways that you can be there for your kids. And the person who I'm speaking to right now knows exactly who they are. And I think it's the pursuit of that help and that change that you're going after, and you're putting yourself to the side because this is your baby.
Yeah. And you bring up such a good point, and it's one of the things in my book. Asking for help is a sign of bravery and courage. You don't have to do this alone. And you're going to keep coming up against those challenges and facing that same pattern, that same cycle, until you say, yeah, I need help. I need support. If we look in Hero's Journey and all the movies, that main character, guess what? They had a Yoda, right? They had a Dumbledore. They had someone who said, hey, I see all the potential in you, and that mentor unlocks it. Like for us as parents,
they allowed them to struggle. They allowed,
Yes.
You're talking about Harry Potter, they allowed Harry Potter to go through all that crap.
Yep.
Well, I mean,
as parents, it sucks seeing them go through it. But at the same time, you're teaching the best way you can. You're communicating the best way you can. But it's so cool to see them overcome it. Because we're not always going to be there as parents. And guess what? When they're adults and they moved away, they're still going to suffer. And so they have to figure it out.
Yeah. Well, and this is kind of what we were talking about, that we are overprotecting in real world situations and underprotecting online.
Yeah.
And so having our kids lose a friendship and having to figure out how to find new friends and ask to join a table to sit at lunch, right?
That's scary for them, too.
It is. And sometimes it just takes 3 seconds of being brave. Like, you've got to be brave. You got to step into that unknown to find.
But see, you and I know that. But when my kid is having a hard time in junior high, you're like, if you only knew that 3 years from now you'll never see these kids again, except maybe 2 or 3 of them.
Do you have that conversation with
I
them?
have. But at the same time, it's just like, but it's still hard for them. It's their issue, and so I accept that. I'm like, I know this is still hard for you, but I do know that there's so much after school that you are going to just look at and just be so grateful that with your family, with your husband, with everything that your job, everything that you want to do in life is still ahead of you. And I'm like, I understand it's hard. And then, but it's hard because you get to that point where they're just down on themselves and you don't know what to do. And then they get on their phones and they get really close and they're just looking. And so how do you protect your kids online? Because you're talking about it. Because I do believe, and I will say this, that Facebook came out, like a whistleblower came out on Facebook and talked about how they go after women's insecurities, they go after women's vulnerabilities and things like that, and that's how they feed girls and women alike so that they stay on constantly, all meta and all that kind of stuff. So with that being said, how do we protect our girls from that specifically? But they go after boys with pornography, they go after boys with things like that. So how do we protect them? Because they'll get away from the family protections, like the thing that they just
have
do.
the workarounds. These
but it's
kids
not just
know.
the kids, but the people who attack our kids, they'll work around it.
And we need to know that as parents, that there are people who just aren't great people in the world who are coming to get our kids. So we've got to equip them with the resilience of that. We've got to get off the phones ourselves. So many parents, we talked about the numbing, right, with the food. Well, guess where else the parents are numbing? Online, scrolling through all of it instead of getting up and doing something together. Have a game night, right? No phones, no devices. Go on a walk, go on a hike, go play baseball in the park. Even if you guys are terrible at whatever it is, go and do something off of your devices, showing our kids that there is fun, there is life, and more fulfilling life and adventures off the screen.
I like this a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I love the direction we've gone with this, because I think as any good parent, we talked about it a second ago, you'll beat yourself up,
Yeah.
right? You put yourself down because you don't think you're giving your kids enough. And then, one thing that I don't think we do is we don't give our kids credit enough, because we're from the generation where the generation right before us was kids were seen and not heard, right? And then it was, our parents did it a little bit different, and we got like the Gen X and the millennials, and like we're doing things a little bit different. Now I feel like my kids' era, your guys' kids' era is more of kind of like the kids are speaking up and they're noticing more things. Like even my 9-year-old, she is keeping us updated on this little girl at her school that has been in the foster system for a long time, and her little brother, and how it's like, she's like, oh, and she feels like this and she feels like this. I'm like, she's 9 and she's telling me about these struggles that a little girl has been having with the foster system. And then she came home one day all excited. She's like, so-and-so's getting adopted. So she doesn't have to move anymore. And it's like, I don't think we give our kids enough credit that their sweet little spirits are so pure that I think they're more in touch with their own emotions, because as adults, we've numbed the hell out of ours. And so I think we end up like, when they're like pure little spirits are like hitting a pain point in our heart, we shut them up sometimes because we don't want to go there, because we may have some unhealed trauma ourselves. So I'm not great at it, but I try to learn from my kids as much as I can.
Yeah. Well, just you sharing this and all of it, everybody listening and watching knows that you are trying and you are changing the direction of your daughter's life by being there and saying, tell me more. Like when your kids come to you, and maybe it is, something that you're like, oh, say, tell me more about that.
Yeah.
Well, what did you mean about that? Can you give me an example? Like not in a negative, derogatory tone, but okay, tell me more about what you're seeing. Because if we give these kids, like this is what drives me crazy in education. It's like, oh, kids these days. And my thing is like, yes, kids these days are incredible. And if they get the opportunity to use their voice, to be able to speak up, to not be silenced, right? And to say, look, I see it this way. Because if we're, specifically with what I'm talking about, if we are going to end teen suicide, we need to listen to the voices of the kids telling us what's going on, because they have the answers. They don't, in the schools, it's not going to be us as adults coming in and changing the culture and the dynamic of it. It might be a moment that we do that, but they're going to be the ripple and the ones to continue to create that change, because they want to see something different, right? They see it, they view it, and we've just got to say, tell me more, kid.
Sometimes my kids specifically will say, hey, Dad, I don't like what you just did. Or I don't like what you just said. I'm like,
Imagine saying that to your parents in the 80s and 90s. No, I'm not saying I know you.
No,
Actually, you're
like,
kind of
my
an. I was
parents
saying
would be like, okay.
yours is maybe a great example. I'm saying mine not either, but it's like the emotional connection wasn't as heavy. I don't feel like in the 80s and 90s.
But my kids now will say that they've said it like they don't say it like I'm not a horrible person or dad, but like I got a little upset with one of them a couple days ago, and she came and talked to me, and she's like, Dad, and I'm like, you know what I mean? It's like, I know I shouldn't have talked that way. I'm sorry.
Well, and all of us as parents do that because we haven't done today yet with our kids. Mm-hmm. Like we have right now. And one of the things that we need to normalize as adults is apologizing and saying, do you know what? I messed up. Here's how I wish I would have handled it. Can we move forward through this? And
I've never done that though. That's really cool.
Yeah. Like I do this all the time. And I tell my kids, I haven't done, like, none of us know what we're going to walk into when we go home, right? Like, those are the unknowns. And so we're doing our best in every single moment with what our past knowledge is and our past experiences. And so we give it our best shot, and we're going to mess up all the time. And it's okay to mess up.
So I like that because, and I also like what I do is like, okay, I'm like, okay, so this is what you did. And this is why there was a consequence. However, I don't like how I reacted to this. How should I react to this? Because either way, you're going to get in trouble. But I want you to be able to know that everything's okay and I still love you, but what you did is not okay. Mm-hmm. So how should we react? And I let them decide how I'm going to react. And then next time I'm like, I try really hard to react that way.
Well,
I want you to give me money next time.
No, it's just like I don't hit my kids, but like I raise my voice and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you know, it's just like, you're smarter than this. And it hurt her feelings. Like, she started crying and everything. I'm like, okay, bad choice of words. I shouldn't have done this because I don't want her to feel like guilty for what she did. It's just, let's do be better next time.
well, and you can review it and look at some of the things that led up to that conversation going bad and going, how should we respond when this happens in the future or something
And it's
similar?
usually because they're on their phone scrolling and they won't get up and do what they're supposed to be doing. Like homework or washing the dishes or something like that. And I'm just like, get off your freaking phone now or
Yeah.
I'm going to kill you. But that's how I feel. But I don't say that, but I do raise my voice sometimes and I need to learn to.
I think one of the biggest takeaway here is besides you know, suicide prevention and awareness with I'm not even just say teens, like with our kids, with our babies, is that's where it starts, and then obviously left unchecked and unrecognized can lead to even bigger problems. I think the biggest takeaway here is that, like you said this a few times, this is the first time you've done anything on this day in these situations, and that as long as you're trying, that's what
I've
matters.
actually had to tell my kids that
And-
once. Like, I've never been a dad
Yeah.
before. This is new to me. Like, you know, like I've never had a 20-year-old before. I don't know how I'm supposed to, like, am I your dad or am I your friend now? Because you're an adult living somewhere else. Like, am I supposed to, I've actually said this to Isaac. I'm like, am I supposed to help you and give you counsel right now? Or am I just supposed to listen? Because I'm like, I don't know. You're an adult. You don't live here anymore.
Yeah.
What do you need from me?
Yeah.
And
that's a great way
Yeah.
to ask. And because they want to know you're part of it, right? Like, they don't need you, nor do they really want you to solve it for them. They just want to be seen and heard,
Sure.
right? Like, even as us as adults, I mean, I've had this happen twice in the last week where it's like, I just need to vent. You know, and sometimes, like with my friends, I call it vomit sharing. Like, and then you're
Logan
like,
and I do that with each other a lot.
and then you feel better. Like, nobody answered any of your questions or thoughts. Like, sometimes you just need to speak it out loud to someone who feels safe, right?
We should do that for our kids.
We absolutely need to, because then that, like what you're talking about, being able to communicate with your kids, that it started out messy and awkward. Yeah, it's going to, because you're doing something you haven't done before, or that in your childhood, you were never taught these communication skills. So you're having to learn right alongside with raising a little human.
Well, I love that my
right?
kids will come and talk to me about everything, like everything. And sometimes you're just like, we talked about this, and I've said this before, but I'm grateful that they do it. But it's been a lot of time and effort on my wife and I's part, like to let that. So we had to let our kids, like, because some of my kids have different beliefs than I do, and it's okay. But they had to understand that I knew that it was okay, that I love them still no matter what. And it took some time because they questioned it. And I learned that some of the things I said was insensitive. And I had to learn the hard way, like meaning like they communicated it with me. And I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, well, that's easy to fix. I'm like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't do that. This is what I said growing up, and I know now I shouldn't be saying stuff like that.
Well, and we don't know what we don't know until
Yeah.
we know it, right? And if someone doesn't voice to us that, okay, this, when you said this, it had this effect, right? And it's okay to have that happen. But moving forward, where do we go from here? How do we shift this so we don't go back to what created it in the first place?
And I think that's healthy. And I love that you can do that.
Gosh, I've loved this whole conversation.
But this was more educational, and I think it helped a lot.
And some tangible things that listeners can walk away with and go, okay, I'm going to implement, or I'm going to say this, I'm going to do this, right? And one thing, as it just dropped in with me, like, if there is someone who came to your mind while you're listening to this, reach out to them, text them, call them, take them, a drink, take them cookies. That is, in my beliefs, that's God working through you to say, this person
Even if it's your
needs
spouse.
you. Yes.
Because this works with the,
And
you should
especially
have,
if it is.
Yeah, you should be talking to your wife and your husband. Just, I like this.
Where can we find you?
So you can find me all over on social media. So we have the Hope Hero, that's the nonprofit. And then Rise with Elysia, Elysia Butler on all the social medias. The HopeHeroFoundation.org is our website. I have 3 books that I've written. All of this started with this that I wrote for my students.
And you're a part of Stand for Kind as well.
Yes.
So, well, what we're going to do is, so you've got your 3 books here. So Become Your Hero of Your Own Story, The Hero's Journey, and Becoming Superheroes. I think these are amazing resources. I was looking these up a little bit before. We're going to link all these on our pages when your episode comes out. Yeah. I love the little Chuck sneaker that you've kind of wrapped your whole brand around there too.
Yes. So it's just kind of turned into this, and where people recognize me for wearing these shoes. And
That's cool.
It started with this book, and then it turned into it, and we found these cute little things. And what I tell people and what this represents, so when you see people wearing these red sneakers or having these keychains, it represents that with every step you take, you are capable of being the hero of your own story.
That's beautiful.
Because it doesn't matter. I shouldn't say it doesn't matter. There are things that have happened in your past that you had no control over, that happened to you. But from this moment forward, choose with every step that you take that you're going to be your own hero.
Well, that's beautiful. And thank you so much for coming and spending this time with us and for sharing the story. Go check out everything that we've got linked to this. And then, like you said, if there's somebody that came into your mind, whether that's a kid, a teenager, a young adult, or a full-on adult, call them, let them know that you are thinking of them and that you are somebody they can call in a time of need. So we love you guys, and we'll catch you next week.